Well, welcome to Willbrook Plantation. I'm Chris King, and I'm joined today by Ian Guerin. We played a beautiful 18 out here this morning on a sunny day. A little muggy, but a nice breeze helped keep it cool here at Willbrook on the South Strand. Ian, to me, this is really one of the area's hidden gems.
Yeah, the course is beautiful. Our game, not so much. I do love coming out here, though. I've made several trips here, and in the last 5 years, I've probably played here 6 or 7 times. A lot of it is work related, but I enjoy coming down here. I like the historical aspect of the course. I like the layout of the course. I like the fact that the front 9 does not feel exactly the same as the back 9. I like that kind of diversity in a layout. It works well. My game is not one where I'm going to find a rhythm and go. I want to see a lot of different things, and this kind of gives me that.
Well, you do have you have the chance to see a lot of different things out here too.
Right.
You had mentioned that you had played out here quite a bit. For me, this was actually probably the first time, and it could have been 10 years since I'd played a full 18 out here. So it was nice to get back and kind of be reminded of some of what makes this golf course special. I mean, to me, what I really like about it is that when you come here, this is a South Carolina golf course.
Right.
You got the low country feel. I mean,
yep.
Regardless of whether you're playing well or you're struggling, like to me, you never forget these oak trees draped in Spanish moss
right.
that frame the course out here. I mean, I think particularly if you're traveling, right, like it creates those take-home memories that people appreciate. But I'll tell you, in looking back on our round, the one thing that stands out to me is, when you get to the first tee here, if I could give people one piece of advice, it would be, hey, when you peg it for the first time, be ready.
Yeah. 3 of the first, first 3 holes, you got 2, 6, and 8 handicaps, I believe, and while some people argue with how accurate that can be, you're going to feel it right off the bat. You're going to know that, like, okay, you better be ready to go.
Yes.
You're not going to want to come out here without hitting the range first. Luckily, I did that today, so maybe those 7s and 8s were 5s and 6s. In my book, that's pretty good. Starting off a round, it usually takes me a little bit to warm up, so you're definitely going to want to make sure that you've stretched, especially if you're an old guy like us. Make sure you're ready to go before you hit number 1.
Absolutely, because that is arguably, that's as demanding a tee shot as there is for the day, right? You can't go right on that one. But, the one thing that this is a Dan Maples design, and the one thing he did, that opening 3 holes, it's tough, but, once you get through those, and the course really kind of opens up, as does your chance to score. I know you really enjoyed, the 5th hole out there today.
Yeah, I like the double carry over the water on 5. It's a fun hole for me because a lot of that distance isn't real distance, and so it makes the hole feel shorter than it's already listed at, which it isn't listed as a long hole. So, a lot of people do have a chance to attack the green in 2 without being that superb golfer, and converse to the first 3 holes of the day, and even 4, which isn't a cakewalk. It's nice to then you hit 5, 6, 7, and you're like, okay, now I can breathe a little bit. Now I'm getting comfortable. Let's finish off the rest of the first 9.
Yeah, and you know what? You mentioned 6. That's a really short par 3. To your point, there is water there, but look, that's as much a mental obstacle as it is a physical
right.
one. The hole played short. The pin was up today. His
right.
hoop was probably playing. I think I lasered it at 110 yards. So
right.
that's an easy swing with a club that isn't going to demand a lot of precision. It's a great little hole there, but again, gives you another chance to score. It's followed by 7, which to me is arguably the easiest par 4 on the golf course.
Right.
It's really open. You've got a chance. You've got some margin for error. So, you get through those first 3 holes, and you know what? The course is going to open up for you out here.
Well, and that's what you said, 7. I felt more comfortable taking a full swing with the driver there because, slice or hook, and sure enough, it goes down the middle, and like you said, the mental block of the par 3 at 6, that's kind of it's the reverse effect on 7. Now you're feeling like you got all this room to work with, and you're not worried about slicing into some of those willows on the right. You're not worried about going into water on the left, and you got all this room to play with. And I think for me, that said, in my mind, just calm down, just hit the ball, and that was one of my better drives of the day.
Yeah, well, exactly. It was the same here. That was really, I kind of started to get my feet under me a little bit, relatively speaking, of course, around that time. And, hey, again, you get there, so it's really, you have the opportunity to close the back 9 strong.
Right.
9, I believe, is the par 5, beautiful I love the little brick staircase coming up there, the oak trees. So it's a nice way to finish. Now, for me, the back nine was a different nine, which I think you had referenced that earlier, is really nice.
It does feel like if you took either one of these nines, you could attach them to a different course. And I think if you told people these were actually two different courses, I don't think there'd be that hard of a sell. I mean, yeah, you've got the historical markers and things like that would tell you otherwise, but it does have 9 to me felt like it looks easier, but it actually plays harder, versus the first 9 here. And I think that, like I said, I like that diversity. I like being challenged more and more as you go, especially after you get a number of easier holes like we did 5, 6, 7, 8.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, you had mentioned it. This isn't a golf course where every hole looks the same. For me, I thought that the back nine was potentially a little softer. I would have seen that a little differently because I felt like it was a little more open off the tee. So again, you had some room to spray it there. But I can tell you this: to me, the most difficult hole on the golf course was certainly on the back nine, and I think it was one you wanted to talk about. 15.
Yeah, that thing. I mean, I felt like I dropped the hammer off the drive, and I get up there and I realize I haven't hit it as hard or as far as I wanted to, and then I walk up and I'm like, I forgot about the marsh, and so then I got to lay up in front of the marsh, and then I duffed one into the marsh. Not that that's germane to anything you guys need to know about, but I duff one into the marsh, and then I take a drop, and then I hit nice and soft because you can't go hard with a little bit of a bend right on there, and I'm barely in front of the 150 marker. So all of a sudden I'm looking up at just a slight uptick into the green, hitting 5, and where did that hole go, and I talked to Craig, the guy that was playing with us today, and I asked him about it, and he just said, I want to go back and play that one again because now that I know what it's all about. And I'm guessing that a lot of first-timers here have that reaction with 15.
Yeah, you know what, look, again, for me, having not been out here in a long time, that one kind of jumped up and sort of slapped me in the face a little bit because, look, even to your point, you felt like you hit your drive well. I think that's a hole where for mid to high handicappers, you could feel like you played that hole pretty well and still kind of struggle because even with I would say, and I don't have the yardages with me exact, but I mean, you hit a 225 to 35 yard drive and you probably still got 140 yards over the marsh, something like that. So maybe not quite that far, but there's still meat left on the bone.
Yeah, and if you're not in the fairway, I mean the roughs here are not super thick, but they're enough where they're gonna shave some yardage off, and so now all of a sudden that easy 160 yard shot over the marsh is now feeling a little bit more daunting, and case in point, I'm right into it. So I think that's one of those holes out here that kind of signifies that the more you play, the more comfortable you're going to get. And even as much as I've played out here in the last 5 years, I went to the tee box and I had forgotten about it. And obviously, all I had to do was one of these. I went, oh yeah, okay, that's the marsh hole on the second shot. I should have known better, but it got the better of me.
Hey, you're not the only one that hole's got the better of. But yeah, you know what? Really, a very enjoyable day out here. The one thing I think I would tell people, like if you're going to miss particularly off the tee, don't do it right. I mean, maybe it's the way the course, fits my eye, but it seemed to me like that's where a lot of the big oak trees were. And look, again, your eye's drawn to that stuff too. I mean, it's where a lot of the beauty is. But again, it's not a course that you want to be pushing the ball on. Right,
and we were talking about this out there too. It's not like either one of us were going slice heavy all day, but we both noticed the same thing, is that, those dog legs, they're not extreme, but they're accented by a big tree with the moss hanging down, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, how far left of that thing do I need to go? Can I skirt it around the right? Is there any way I can go over the top? All of a sudden your whole shot selection is based off of one tree, and I felt like a good number of the holes here, maybe as many as half of them, were based off that for me. Like, okay, how far left do I need to go? If I catch a little bit of that moss, how much is it going to slow me down? How many times am I going to have to punch out? Those are all things that I was thinking throughout this round. 1 through 18.
Well, yeah, and that stuff, it impacts every shot on a hole. And we've talked about the course a lot from a mid to high handicapper's perspective. I think the white tees play at about between 62 and 6,300 yards, which to me is actually a pretty good length. It's not too short, but it's certainly not too long. Now, if you are a long hitter out here, I think, as Craig, the guy we played with today, he he had a little more length than we did. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, easy.
You now, if you have that, the course opens up for you, and that you have the ability to play the ball over a couple of those dog legs, and it could really open up for you. Unfortunately, that's a game about which I can't speak very well.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to learn that game anytime soon. But I mean, we saw that with Craig's club selection versus ours. I mean, we're hitting our drivers almost off of all the par fours. He's hitting a low iron and just plunking it next to the 150 marker, and he's barely swinging. And obviously that's a different skill set, physical abilities and things like that. But I don't think that if he would have played back, I don't think that he would have had the success, because his game is long irons and easier shots into the green. I don't know that he would have enjoyed it as much, but again, he also said he hadn't played very much lately either. So that's something to take into consideration. But as you said, that 62 to 6,300 yards, for me, even not being a big hitter off of the tee box, I didn't feel like it was too long.
No, and hey, by the way, and just a statement about tees people choose to play. Good for Craig for playing there too.
Right.
Like he had the length to step back and play. He'd had to have hit a lot more drivers, but it's a club he's not as comfortable with. So hey, these were the tees to play, and the way for him to play today. And if we all thought about the game that way a little more, we'd probably be better
he
off.
wanted to have fun with the course. I mean, we've written about this. I mean, I think both of us have in the last several months. I mean, the whole point of golf is to go have fun, not to feel like you had your butt handed to you and you want to rip up the scorecard at the end of the round. He had fun. He came out here, he had a couple birdies, especially here on 18 with that nice chip in there. He had a lot of fun. He wants to come back and play golf again, and for him it was because he chose the right set of tees.
Well, and you know what? Look, I think fun is really a lot of what this golf course is.